Imagine receiving a letter, not from a friend, not from a lover, from a killer. A killer who has already broken into homes across your city, who has already left bodies behind, men and women found in their beds, beaten and slashed with an axe. A killer the police cannot find, cannot identify, cannot stop. And the letter says this: I will come again. I will visit New Orleans on the night of Tuesday, March 19th, 1919, just after midnight. And I will spare every household where jazz music is playing. That night, every dance hall in New Orleans was packed. Jazz poured out of windows and doorways across the entire city. Bands played until dawn. And true to his word, not a single person was attacked. He was never caught. He was never identified. And to this day, nobody knows who the Axman of New Orleans was, or why he simply stopped.
To understand this story, you need to understand New Orleans in 1918. The city was unlike anywhere else in America. A port city, a melting pot of French, Spanish, African, and Caribbean culture packed into narrow, sweltering streets. Jazz, raw, alive, electric, had been born here barely a decade earlier, rising out of the brothels and saloons of Storyville, the city's famous red light district. It was also a city under enormous pressure. World War I was grinding toward its end in Europe. The great influenza pandemic of 1918 was spreading across the country, killing tens of thousands. People were already afraid, already on edge, already praying for something to break in their favor. Into that atmosphere, into that already frightened, already grieving city, came the Axman. The attacks began in the spring of 1918. The pattern was almost always the same. A family home, a rear door, usually with a panel chiseled out to reach the lock inside. A grocer, almost always of Italian descent, and his wife, found in the morning by neighbors. Beaten, slashed, left for dead or already gone. And somewhere nearby, an axe, always the victim's own axe, taken from somewhere on the property, left at the scene. The Axman brought nothing. He used what he found, and he left nothing behind.
The first confirmed attack linked to the Axman came on the night of May 22nd, 1918. Joseph and Catherine Maggio were found in their bedroom by Joseph's two brothers. Catherine had her throat slashed so deeply she was nearly decapitated. Joseph had been struck repeatedly with an axe. He died hours later. Catherine died at the scene. A bloody axe was found in the backyard. The rear door panel had been chiseled out. Nothing was stolen. Written in chalk on the pavement nearby, found the next morning, were the words, "Mrs. Maggio is going to sit up tonight, just like Mrs. Tony." Nobody ever fully explained what it meant, or who wrote it. One of Joseph's brothers was briefly suspected. He was released without charge. 6 weeks later, Baker Louis Bessemer and his companion Harriet Lowe were found in their home on Dorgenaw Street. Both had been struck with an axe while sleeping. Harriet Lowe survived long enough to give a statement, but her account changed repeatedly before she died. Bessemer himself was arrested and later acquitted. The real attacker was never found. The attacks continued through the summer and into the fall. A pregnant woman named Mrs. Edward Schneider was found alone and beaten in her bed. She survived and delivered a healthy baby days later. A young man named Al Durand was attacked. A grocer named Joseph Romano was struck twice in the head. His two nieces, sleeping nearby, heard nothing until it was over.
The city was gripped by a terror that was made worse by one simple fact. Nobody ever saw him. Nobody heard him enter. Nobody heard him leave. He moved through locked hames in the dark like he was part of the night itself. Then, on March 13th, 1919, the Times-Picayune newspaper received a letter. It was published in full the following day, and it is one of the most extraordinary documents in the history of American crime. Hell, March 13, 1919. Esteemed mortal, they have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. Now, to be exact, at 12:15, earthly time, on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well, then so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of those people who do not jazz it on that Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Axman. New Orleans did not hesitate. On the night of Tuesday, March 19th, 1919, every dance hall in the city was open and overflowing. Bands played from dusk to dawn. People threw parties in their homes. Sheet music for a song called The Mysterious Axman's Jazz, composed specifically for that night, sold out across the city. Windows were thrown open so the music could pour out into the streets. Not a single person was attacked that night. Whether this was because the killer honored his own bizarre terms, because the sheer noise and activity made attack impossible, or because the letter was an elaborate hoax designed to terrify the city, nobody knows. What is certain is that the Axman kept his word, and then kept killing. The attacks resumed in August 1919. Grocer Steve Boca was struck in the head with an axe while sleeping. He survived, but remembered nothing. A young woman named Sarah Lawman was found beaten in her bed. A grocer named Mike Pepitone was murdered in October 1919, the most brutal attack yet. His wife and 6 children were asleep in the next room and heard nothing. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. No more attacks, no more letters, no arrest, no confession, no body. The Axman simply ceased to exist. There was one postscript. In December 1920, a man named Joseph Mumfree was shot dead on a Los Angeles street by a woman named Esther Albano, who claimed to be the widow of Mike Pepitone, the Axman's last victim. She said Mumfree was the Axman. She served 3 years in prison. Mumfree's background: he had a criminal record, had been in prison during a gap in the attacks, and had connections to New Orleans, made him a plausible suspect. But there was no evidence, no confession, no proof of any kind. Esther Albano went to her grave insisting she had killed the right man. Police never confirmed it. The case was never officially closed. Who was the Axman? 3 theories have dominated the conversation for over a century. The first, a single serial killer with a specific obsession.
the near-exclusive targeting of Italian-American grocers, the ritualistic method, always the rear panel, always the victim's own axe, and the theatrical letter all suggest someone with a fixed, personal pattern. Some researchers believe the Axman had a specific grudge against the Italian immigrant community, possibly rooted in mafia rivalries that were very real in New Orleans at the time. The second, the mafia itself. Several historians have argued that the attacks were targeted hits by the Black Hand, an extortion organization that preyed on Italian immigrants, designed to punish grocers who refused to pay protection money. The axe, under this theory, was a message. The theatrical letter, a calculated act of mass terror designed to overwhelm police with panic. This would explain why the victims were almost all Italian grocers, and why no witnesses ever came forward. Because in that community, talking to police was more dangerous than staying silent.
The third, multiple killers. Some criminologists believe the letter was a hoax, written by a journalist or prankster capitalizing on the existing panic, and that the attacks themselves were carried out by different people at different times, loosely linked by method, but not by a single mind. Under this theory, there was no Axman, only axes and men willing to use them. The truth is, we don't know, and the letter, that extraordinary, theatrical, jazz-loving letter, remains the most baffling piece of evidence in the entire case, because whoever wrote it understood something fundamental about New Orleans. They knew that the one thing that could move this city, the one thing it would rally around without question, was music. The Axman killed at least 6 people, possibly more. Some researchers believe earlier unsolved axe murders in 1911 belonged to the same killer, which would push the timeline back nearly a decade. The victims were ordinary people, grocers, wives, people who locked their doors at night and thought they were safe. Nobody was ever convicted. Nobody was ever officially named. The file sits open somewhere in the archives of the New Orleans Police Department, a city that has seen more than its share of darkness and has always chosen music over fear. On the night of March 19th, 1919, a killer told a city to play jazz or die, and the city played so loud, so long, so defiantly that even a demon from hell had to respect it. Or at least that's the story. Whether he was a demon, a mafia enforcer, a grievance-driven killer, or a ghost story that got out of hand, nobody living knows for certain. What do you think? Was the letter real? Was Joseph Mumfree the Axman? Drop your theory below. And if you want more cases like this one, cases that are stranger than fiction, you know what to do.